just make sure you open the window first, okay?
Oh, that's what I did wrong.
Okay, we'll call this meeting of the Hyde Park Select Board to do the budget to order at a little after 6 on Monday, December 28th. I'll remind.
Feedback for mute all or mute.
Right.
That's Roland. I just muted Roland because he was making some noise.
Okay, sounds like there's a little duck walking around there or something. Okay, let's see. I'll start with, do we have any changes to the agenda? Ron, do we have anybody else calling in?
No, just Greenmount Access is online. That's it.
Okay. Anything else? We'll just, I guess, just start. Do folks have the budget packet that Ron sent for the last meeting?
Yes.
Starts out with the draft of December 18th.
Yes.
Okay. Ron, maybe you just want to start walking us through it.
Yeah, we could do that. I'm gonna try to mute whoever's talking. So I don't know if that's David, maybe. All right. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that was better.
Okay. Yeah. So I just muted people because we're getting a bunch of feedback on the audio. So when I'm done talking, I'll open it up again. Or if you want to unmute yourself, go ahead. You can do that anytime. So in the packet that I sent out, there's sort of a summary page, which I try to do just to give you a big picture view of what's going on, and starting with revenues, then going to expenses. So if you had that packet and read it, there's not a lot of room to move, I guess, because of the revenue situation. So you're already starting at a choice of removing $30,000 from the unassigned fund balance, which is something we talked about last year to try for this year. Of course, that's pre-COVID, so part of the impact on the budget's revenue. If you're already starting out at minus 41,000, it gets really hard to keep to a 3% tax rate increase or less. The other line items in highway and capital reserves are a lot of those are choices too. So as you try to do your programming, whether it's paving or capital reserves, some of those are your choice, and they're sort of round numbers. For the capital reserves, for example, do you want to continue to work to the annual goals? And so for highway capital reserve increasing by 20,000 doesn't get you to the goal, but it makes steps towards the goal. Same thing with fire reserve, increase that by 20,000 in this draft. Doesn't get you to the goal, but it makes steps towards the goal. So I don't, as far as trying to come up with an easy answer here, there's not a lot. What we do in January is all of the wages, payroll expenses, health benefits, a lot of those fixed costs, if you will, are revisited just to make sure they're accurate. So they will change a little bit, but not by much. Right now, there's a 2% wage increase for employees in there. There's no new jobs. There's no major changes in what people are getting paid. The 2% across the board is in there. Most of the outside agencies are level funding. We do have 3 new requests that came in this year. I can go over those 3 quickly. And those are the people that are taking advantage of the no petition COVID exemption. First one is North Central Vermont Recovery Center. They're asking for $2,000, part of a statewide recovery program. I think I'm trying to think what the number was. There are 16 or 22 related centers throughout Vermont. They've never asked for funding before. Salvation Farms serves Lamoille County with farm to table type food services, connecting farmers to schools and senior needs. And then the third one is Vermont Family Network, drug interdiction related to opiates and other things, but that's part of Jenna's Promise in Johnson. So that's that network. So all of those add up to 3,200. Let me just check that number. Yeah, $3,250 more for those three combined. Pretty much everybody else, I'm still waiting for some requests to come in. There's probably 7 or 8 agencies that haven't submitted yet. They're all level funded, so you're not going to get a big push and increases from those for those groups. So circling back to revenues, the non-tax rate or non-property tax revenue is the negative 41,000, and I summarized what that was about in that memo. Some of it has to do with simply having a good low delinquent tax base for delinquent property taxes. So we're not getting the interest or anticipating cleaning up those accounts, so to speak. So those go down as you get better, but then the tax, anticipate current tax goes up. I guess this is wishful thinking, but the state aid to highways has increased slightly over the years, not very much, but we were holding them flat at 131,000, but we've been getting about 136. I don't think the legislature will reduce the state aid to highway. They did reduce their grants, and they delayed grants, and they canceled them all in 2020, but they still made the state aid to highway payment. So I don't think they'll mess with that. That would be a real big problem if they started to mess around with that 131,000, projected to be 135 next year. A lot of the other revenue lines we have are insignificant in the scheme of coming up with 41,000. That's about it for revenues. So again, we start at negative 41, then you look at expenses, and then we can go down each budget line. One of the cover pages that you have shows the tax rate projection. So with that negative 41,000 and increases to expenses, we're looking at a 6.12% tax rate increase. And that is not what the select board has tried to do in the past. The goal has always been 3% or less for a tax rate increase. That number does anticipate a 1.25% increase in the grand list. We've been about 1 or under for 12 years now, but last year we saw it creep up a little bit. This year we issued more house permits than the last 10 years for 2020. So I expect the grand list will go up because of that. And also it's the last year of the McMahon's 25% tax exemption. So they'll be at 100% for the first time in 5 years as of April 1st, 2021. So we do have that incorporated there. So as far as the tax rate projection goes, the grand list projected increase is 1.25, which helps a little bit. It doesn't quite overcome some of these increases, but it helps. So anyway, if you want to figure out where to go from here, you can look at that first page where I summarize the major changes for revenues and expenditures. It's the what I said before, capital reserves are in there. The new water charges are in there at 21,000. Increasing paving to get to the 250,000 a year is increased by 20,000. The patrol budget's up by almost 10,000. So you got about 100,000 in those 5 or 6 line items. And a lot of towns will go right after the capital reserve because it doesn't affect services, but it affects your future. You know, sort of like the government giving out $600 paychecks. It doesn't affect you today, but it'll affect the grandkids. So the capital reserve is sort of treated like that. We will have to pay those bills when they come due because we need all of the money to replace our current capital equipment. So those goals that you see there, the 120,000 for fire, 215,000 a year for highway capital, are based on replacement cycles. So as your fleet increases and inflation pushes the replacement costs, those numbers have to keep increasing, even if it's just to keep up with inflation. The 20,000 a year stays ahead of inflation, but it doesn't quite get you to your goal, so that you can avoid loans down the road. So give a quick summary of what the options are. If you could find 30,000, either on the revenue side or the expenditure side, that 6.12% tax rate increase would reduce to 4.76. So that kind of gives you the ballpark, if you will, of how you look at the budget. Do you want to get to 0% tax rate increase? And that you need $119,000 somewhere to do that, either on the revenue side, expenditure side, or a combination. If you want to try to get to the 3%, you're probably looking at more like 65,000 to 70,000 of either increased revenues or decreased expenses. So in the back of your head, keep thinking about where you want to end up. There's also looking at cuts to services. If you really wanted to go for the zero, you would probably end up cutting some services somewhere. I don't know where that would be. That's a large discussion. This budget doesn't cut services. It does try to maintain services and staff at the current levels, and it also increases the capital reserves and the paving lines. So the capital reserves and paving is 60,000, and which is about half of your total increase in your revenue that you need. And that's about it. I think I just stop there for now and see where y'all are at. Hold on a second, to make sure I don't have everybody muted. And then you can unmute yourself if you want to talk. You can unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Why don't we just start right on the expenditures and stuff and just go down through department by department, and then just got any questions?
Yep. So we can start on expenses if you want, which is the general administration expenses. And what I'll do is, if there's questions that I can't answer tonight, I'll take notes to get everybody the answers to them. So if you run up against a why is this like this and I can't explain it for you very, completely enough, I'll do the research and get it back to you. So I don't know, Susan, how do you want to do this? Do you just want to open up administration and see if anybody has specific questions, or do you want me to run down the?
There we go. Okay. I guess it's probably just sort of looking at the start at the there's the select board. Whew, well, we'd save a lot of money if we didn't pay ourselves anything. I mean, just sort of going down and seeing where the changes are.
Yeah, one of the costs that you'll see is on the health benefit and dental for the administration. Those are staffing changes, as well as me going to opt out. So you'll see some changes in there where nothing's changed as far as personnel goes, but family situations change. Or like for me, I got off the family plan and decided to take the opt out. So you see these deductions. It's not that somebody came off the health plan totally. It's either a classification change from a 2-person to 1-person, or sometimes it's covered to opt out payment. The opt out payment is about $4,700 a year compared to $20,000 a year for a family. The other large number is the IT services for NEMRIC, the $8,000.
Right.
And that is an option for the select board to expand the services from Tech Group. Tech Group is the one that monitors all our systems and has a backup system for data. So if we were to get malware or something like that happen to the hospital, you know, they have the backup system where we're supposed to be back up and running within 24 hours to 48 hours. That's the contract. So they make sure that everything's current and good. All the licenses are good. And if we were to get a major problem, that we could be up and running within 48 hours. So that capacity is not yet in our annual cost. That $8,000 more will get us to that level. Currently, we go ahead.
If we went down now, okay, so if let's see, first of all, if we went down now and it were an attack, we'd have to pay X amount of dollars to get it back, right?
Yeah, there's a couple ways that there's a couple ways we could go down, if you will. One is for somebody to click on an email in the office and get access to the server, and then the foe or the evildoer takes control of the server and locks it out, so we can't get in anymore except to pay them a ransom, basically. The other way that could go down, which is a little bit less likely, is to have Microsoft 365 go down in the cloud, which seems to be almost impossible, but it could happen. 365 holds a lot of the day-to-day work files that aren't related to NEMRIC and our accounting system. So like planning and zoning, select board minutes and agendas are all up 365 cloud up here. The NEMRIC stuff is another backup system. So the backups to those backups are not done yet. So if NEMRIC had a problem with some software problem, some glitch in the NEMRIC side of things, NEMRIC has a backup to all our accounting now. There's no backup to NEMRIC though, for example. So if there's a perfect disaster where multiple layers get attacked, then we wouldn't have a backup to NEMRIC. I almost think it's almost impossible, but that's what this extra layer would provide, is another backup to that. The other issue is the 365, which deals with select board work papers, agendas, you know, animal control ordinances, all those documents. Those are backed up on 365, but there's nothing at 365. So, but they call that cloud to cloud backup. If you're familiar with that term, you're basically backing up another backup. So if we wanted to go forward with it, I'd have Dave Bora, who's the sales guy from Tech Group, explain all that a little bit more technical, but that's basically the essence of it. Is they're providing a system so that we're totally protected against 90%, 95% of what we might face today.
So if we weren't protected and we went down, what would be the what would the town see? What would taxpayers see? What would happen?
Yeah, yeah. So immediately you potentially would lose the website, and you'd lose the ability to go online to talk to Kim's online records, land records. So the online record system would go down. That's run through the server. The emails would go down because those are all through the server. So you'd have phone connection only to the town office at that point if the server goes down, because all those things run through the server. Town staff wouldn't, like today I was online plenty of times going to Kim's online record system to do research. So I wouldn't be able to do that. I'd you physically have to go to the town office to get in there and do that research. The guarantee, if there is such a thing as a guarantee, is that Tech Group would come in and get us back whole within 48 hours. Under the current system, we wouldn't have a backup for 365 if that went bad, which is provided by this extra cost. And the server backup would be complete. So for example, the server does a lot of things in the office. One of them is it runs NEMRIC, another one does email, another one it does the website. So there's a lot of things tied to the town server. I believe that emails, a long history of email, is not in a backup mode for very long. I'm not sure if it's 90 days or there is a backup to the email that goes through the server, but it's not a long-term one. Dave Borough couldn't answer the question for me about how long, because we're supposed to keep emails. So that's a technical question he was going to research. But if we're going to invest in this, one of the questions is retainage. Retainage being how long do all our records have to be kept somewhere safe. And with everything pretty much digital, we want to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing with retainage and have it accessible and preserved and all that stuff.
Hey, Ron, does the town lose revenue with this internet NEMRIC stuff? I know we used to charge vault time. And if they're going in home, not coming in there, they're not paying vault time. So I'm just wondering if the town's losing any revenue because of it.
We buy, well, you're talking about NEMRIC itself for the accounting? We have two,
Yeah.
we had two,
No,
the
the
bulk
lawyers,
hours. What's that?
the lawyers and, you know, the people that are doing the land records and the title searches and yada, yada, yada. Every time they come in, got in the vault, we used to have what we call the vault charge. And
Oh,
they,
the vault time, yeah.
vault time. Now, if they're on the internet, they're not doing that. So I'm wondering if the town is losing revenue because of it.
Well, there's still the recording fee, which is the bigger one. That's the big per page fee. That hasn't changed at all. So anything going in the land records is still revenue. The online system is a fee-based system, so there is a charge for getting access to that. I don't know how they compare, but there is a fee to download the files. So what you're talking about is there a loss because people have reduced the number of download files? So if you're on the online system, you can browse for free, but if you want to download a document for your legal records, you pay a fee. So the difference is what you're talking about. There's still a fee, but I don't know what the difference is on that. Between vault time was never that much. It's small compared to the recording of the documents, which is in your $30,000 one. I think the vault time was, I don't even know if we keep track of it. So I'll ask Kim that next week to say, what is the difference of the new online system? She's had it long enough that she should be able to tell us what she's seeing for revenue.
Okay. And the only other thing I've seen as far as the municipal expenses is the town listers. And I'm just saying this because of the budget. Is when we went into this back with Don retiring and Julie selling her place and moving away, that was not ever supposed to be a 40-hour job. It was supposed to be a 32-hour job. And so we as the select board come to the conclusion, a decision that Kristen could take up to 8 hours in the lister's position, which would make it a 40-hour job where 8 hours of pay would be out of the lister's office and 32 would be out of the where it is now. And right now, I can't see any difference than in the way it was.
That part of the plan didn't work out as planned. How's that?
I think
I don't know if it's actually 0 from 8, you know, to get specific about it, how many hours she helps out doing things that Julie would have done. Julie's in the office as an assistant to the listers, not as a lister anymore, but as an assistant employee 4 hours a week. Kristen does do some of the assessment assistance, but I'm not sure if it's anything different than Kim normally would have done. You know, can you pull my assessment card? You don't really need to be a lister for that job. That's actually part of the town clerk's jobs generally, showing people where to get that from. So that's kind of a question for Kim too.
Right. Well, and I think again, this is part of where COVID, because what we planned to have happen was that Julie was going to work with Kristen to train her on those things. And that's what hasn't happened. Again, I think a lot of that sort of stuff has fallen behind, but Ron and I talked about it, said, yeah, we need to, we need to figure out something. And I think possibly with the listing is we're going to need to ship it all out. And I'm not quite sure, besides money, I'm not quite sure what that means or how much work. Again, how we'd sort that out with the work that can be then done in office as opposed to having it all shipped out.
I guess just to give everybody an idea of what we had gotten to when Julie had her place on the market and she was getting ready to leave, we came up with a plan to have somebody take over the assessment services for the town. And that was resolved by coming up with sort of two different ways to deal with it. One was to hire somebody new, which would be, again, sort of what Julie is doing now, which is assisting the elected listers, or hiring out basically a hired assessor. So assessor services through NEMRIC was, I don't even want to, could be 50,000 a year. I'm just guessing. Could be 30,000 a year. Whatever it's going to be, it's not in the budget. So if Julie was going to say, next week that we got a buyer for our house and we're moving, the two elected listers do not know how to do the town assessment jobs. So they would either have to quit their day jobs and try to get up to speed, or they would go to you as a select board and say, we need 50,000 to fix this problem, which we don't have. So the only other option is trying to train somebody or hire somebody to take Julie's place. And I don't know if that's easily done. That hiring somebody to come in for 4 days, 4 hours a week could be possible. Basically just take over Julie's role as she is now. But if you can't find anybody, you're sort of left with NEMRIC. And people that like to do assessment services for towns these days, due to the training requirements, is pretty light to choose from if you can find anybody to do it.
So can we say this is post COVID and train
Kristen?
Kristen, thank you very much. Train Kristen after the offices get back open and stuff.
Yeah, and it would almost be good, to focus on this with Kim. I don't want to say COVID's changed it all, anything with the office. They're still doing split shifts and they're still doing appointments. I don't think there's that many times where Kim and Kristen are in the office at the same time. But to focus on Kristen getting trained somehow, whether that, I know she started to do some training with the league and the state lister association, but I don't know where she's at with that. If Julie were to leave tomorrow, we wouldn't be able to help her train. So while Julie's here, should we tell them to figure out a schedule between Kim knowing that part of the 40 is supposed to be for training, and ask Julie if she can find some time in the week to sit with Kristen and just put a little more emphasis on making that happen while Julie's still here. That we haven't sort of asked that question yet to Because of COVID, we haven't asked that question or forced it. While Julie's still here, we might want to take advantage of her.
Yeah, I think that's the first question that we should ask Ron. And have the conversation with, I think, with Kim and Christian, that remembering this was, you know, it was 32 hours and the 8 hours was doing this. And see where we are from there. See if Julie will come in and do some training. Make sure Kristen wants to do it. Maybe Kristen would be in the complexities of life. Maybe she'd be happier working 32 hours a week. You know, you don't. I guess that's probably all the stuff we should find out first. I don't see when Julie leaves. We can look for somebody to come in and do that job, but I will be stunned if we can find anybody. And my concern, actually it's closer to a fear, is that we're going to have to come up with $50,000 and head off for, you know, have it done completely outside. I don't, it's hard enough to get people staying for Lister, and Julie put some nice pressure on the ones we have to get them to stay. So it's, and again, the assessment question was going around earlier, because I think a lot of communities are getting where they stand on their appraisals out of whack, because every town, many towns are experiencing this property selling way over their listed values. I mean, I know a couple of properties in town that I can't believe what they've sold. So I think and again, that's not going to be a Hyde Park problem. I think that's going to be a problem the state's going to have to look at, because it's suddenly sort of the entire state out of whack with their appraisals because of the oddness of the COVID people from away paying anything bump that's been going on.
Yeah, regardless, but that we can start that with Julie and Kim. Means get that going. Just, you know, just going back onto what we decided on back in the day. Right.
Yeah, the other, just a fine point, I could hear Kim talking to me late last, I think it was over the summer when we were first talking about this, and she uses 35 hours. And Dave's been using 32. I can't find any notes on that split, but I haven't looked too hard. So just, if anybody has any recollection about that, I want to just not have that as a question. I don't want to have I want to have everybody agree to what that is. So if anybody has a 32 or 35 note somewhere, that would be.
Do we maybe have it in her letter of hire?
Yeah, well, Kim did that, so I have to go ask Kim. Let me see if I think she sent it to me, if I can find it quick while you guys can carry on.
Okay.
No, that's okay. But I think mostly looking at, you know, at the town offices and wages, the only way to save a chunk is if we decide we don't want to do the additional protection. And there's $8,000 there. I'm not saying we do it, but just in terms of going through now and looking for money, that's the only place that there's any money. Anybody see anything else?
How much have we got into the fire equipment fund?
A minute.
Is he asking about a balance as of today?
Yes.
Yeah. Fire equipment repairs.
The capital fund.
Yeah, what's the balance?
Yeah, I don't have those. I asked Allison to prepare those because we're publishing those in the town report. So I have a note down here to fill those in for you as of June 30, 2020. That's what we'll publish, is the June 30, 2020 numbers. Last year, it's probably, are you talking about vehicles or the equipment fund, Roger?
Equipment. Not the vehicles.
well, the small equipment had minimal dollars. I think it was like under $10,000. The equipment got, the vehicle one got spent to pay for the new North Hyde Park truck. So I'll have to get you a new balance on that, but it was hit by that expenditure. But I'll get a good number for you.
Okay, are we on to highway now, Ron?
Yes.
The only question I got with the highway, it's the health benefit, dental and opt-out. You got 46,200. That may be low because if this new person we got is not on the opt-out, that's gonna go up by 12.
Yeah, so in the projection for highway, we have so we had LaHoulier was an opt-out, and we didn't put a family plan in his place, put it that way.
That's right, because if I look at one of the other employees that's on a family plan, that's 18,000 with
Yeah.
all the insurance, dental, vision, and health. Now, if this new person comes on, gets on that family plan, that's going to increase that line.
Yeah, well, it's about 5,000 on the opt-out cost.
Right, so it'd be $12,000 difference.
Be the difference, yeah. Yeah, so $13,000 is missing if there's a family plan from an opt-out.
Correct.
Yeah. No,
Dave, you're supposed to be finding where we can save money, not how we spend more.
That's coming out. Okay, roadside cutting, hazard and tree and brush. We budget $12,000, but we only been spending $7,000 to do it. And I thought with this, after this is the third year, and I thought after the third year that all the town was going to be all major cut and brush, where it's just going to be maintenance now.
Yeah, the 12,000 is two numbers. It's 7,000 for the rental, which had been 2 weeks. I'm not sure if Mark is ready to go to 1 week on that and keep up with the mileage. That's a question. So whether that's 3,500 or 7,000 is sort of that question alone. The 5,000 is for hazard tree removal, which we're just starting to do. So went up to 12,000 in FY20, but Mark wasn't ready to sort of implement it then, so we didn't spend that money. This year, in 21, we have spent money trying to get hazard tree removal back up to speed. So that's 5,000 on its own, and that's a new program that we're trying to get the trees and the ash and the elm that are failing in the road out of the way.
But if you can save 3,500, that's 3,500 saved.
I think so. I think that's probably a good question for Brian and Mark to get confirmation on. Is can the 7,000 be cut in half because we're not going to need that roadside mower for 2 consecutive weeks?
Yes, I've talked to Mark, and I was over there at the shop. I think it was last Tuesday, anyways, and he and I talked about sitting down and going over the budget. And he said he had something to get together, and then he and I were going to sit down and see what we can pull together. Since it's the largest piece of the pie, I think we need to look at it and see what we can come up with. We'll just work on it together and see. And I'll make that suggestion of what you just said about the cutting the tree cut budget.
You know, if those guys are out of the shop working, which I'm sure they are, how in the world can they run a $5,500 electric bill when nobody's in the shop? If they go in the morning, hop in the truck and go to work and come back at night and drop the trucks off, how in the world can they spend $5,500 in electricity?
One thing that could be done on that is the same thing as what happened in Morristown garages. They put in an automatic sensor system, so when they're in there, the lights come on and the lights go off automatically when there's motion in there. And I bet it saved. I don't know if Roland can attest to that or not, but I imagine that would save us quite a bit of money just by implementing a little bit. But it would take a little bit of a cost to put it in.
Because boy, it was in the last 5 years, wasn't it, Ron? We put in all those high efficiency lights.
Yeah, it's probably 10 years now, Dave. But yeah, we did do that. I'm just looking at the electric bill for the town garage in September was $230.
But boy, then that's far right.
And then yeah, then the winter, the winter time, I've seen some close to 400. So I think it ranges quite a bit. And I don't know what the reason is. So maybe that's another area to try to figure it out. We could run the last 12 months or so for Brian to look at on the electricity only and just see why it goes up and down so much.
Yeah, I believe part of it would be your bigger motors, like your air compressor. We just put in a new air compressor in there, if you remember. And then I think your heating, you could do, I don't know if it's possible to do something similar, like when the garage is not in use, the heat drops down to a safe temperature, then it comes back up. Just things like that could be done. What's it called? Efficiency Vermont would probably be able to help us on the whole thing.
Yeah, they should be, especially if you look at the history. I think one of the big draws was that air compressor. So that's probably was a good change to make for electrical needs. It's kind of ancient, so to speak.
So anything that's drawing a 220 line, or even some of the 110 stuff, if it's not, if it's too big of a motor for the size of the power coming into it, can draw quite a bit. But again, just a motion detector lighting system in there would be fine, and it worked real good for down to the Morristown garage. And I worked in there when I was there by myself with the crew and stuff. It would shut off and turn on in sections, and different bays would come on. And I don't think it would be that much of a deal to get it implemented. I think the long-term cost savings would pay for whatever it do to modify it.
Okay, just seemed high to me, that's all.
Anybody see much else there? It's
Now I get a question on the town. Take the gravel. The town pays $30,000 or $38,000. What is it around? 38,000.
38. Yeah.
38 every 3 years to have the gravel processed.
We changed that. We changed it last year.
Okay, but
We changed it to every two years to swap with culverts.
okay, whatever. So we got that $38,000 out of the town budget. The Halloween storm comes blowing through, washes a lot of roads out and stuff, and we haul gravel after gravel after gravel after gravel out of that pit for FEMA.
Yes.
FEMA pays us back. Where's the money go in to help pay for that gravel that the taxpayers paid to get it and FEMA's reimbursing us.
Yeah, they'll reimburse you for the material cost of everything that was used, you know, whether you bought it or had your own material.
Mhm.
That money, when the check comes, you can decide to replenish that pile, you know, do 65,000, for
Yeah.
example, instead of 38, and replenish the pile if you want to do that, so you're back whole. I don't think FEMA makes you do that, though. That's your decision on how to spend that money.
Okay, but where in this budget does it show us where FEMA money come back into the town?
Well, it hasn't come
that's-
in yet, right?
It won't be in the budget. It won't be in the budget. That's a revenue that you're anticipating from the federal government that will be on the revenue side when it shows up. We don't know when it will show up.
Right, but we still don't have it. So it
Yeah,
would
so it's
be
a
up in
loss.
the revenues.
Okay, but when it does come, we use wages for the FEMA. We use material for the FEMA. We use wear and tear on our vehicles. We use fuel for our vehicles out to the budget. Then it's coming back in. Well, it's already paid for by the town, and this is a reimbursement from FEMA.
Yeah, it's paid. Those are all expenses that were paid in FY20, because that was a November 1, 2019 storm event. So we took the loss in fiscal year 20. So that loss, if you will, is still on our books because we haven't been reimbursed yet. So the check that comes in will be revenue, but offsetting your prior year loss. So I see what your question is. If we get a $100,000 check tomorrow, can I go buy gravel? Is that what you're saying, Dave? Basically.
I'm saying, can you replace the yardage of gravel that we use during the FEMA?
That's the intention of the FEMA money, is that we would be reimbursed for our loss. And you're asking two questions at once. You're asking a practical dollar question and an accounting question. I'm not sure I can clearly explain this actually, but I can probably get a better idea for you in a minute when I think about it. But there is an accounting issue here too, that if you want to look at the money, you're potentially not going to see it because it's covering a loss on June 30th, 2020, because we put all that money out.
Right.
And you're supposed to be putting the money back in too, not spending it twice.
Even though when we spent that money again as a loss, we didn't take our books into the red because we have enough capital put aside to not take us into the red, correct?
Well, we spent an inventory.
Yeah.
And we spent cash. So we spent cash when we paid the staff wages.
Right.
And we spent inventory when we used the gravel.
Right. So we, and again, this is where you get into the difference between here's the cash and here's the accounting principle behind it. I get lost on the accounting principles pretty fast, Dave.
I can't explain it.
Yeah, but so fortunately, the town of Hyde Park was in a situation that we didn't have to go out and borrow money to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we had, to be really simple, we had the cash to pay for it. But if you look at accounting, we operated those things at a loss that year. So when the check comes in, you can, and again, you can decide, and that's where I get. So do you, technically, accounting wise, you take care of the loss, which means we'd replace the money from the places we took it, right, Ron?
Yeah, that's the accounting side of things. So
Right.
I want to be able to answer Dave's question better though.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but I'm saying,
From
but if
from
we,
the practical way of what do you do with this $100,000 check? Where does it go?
Right. So
We are
it's
going to get a check
really,
at some point. Could be
it is,
200,000.
but do we replace basically, talking about gravel, replace the holes that we created in our savings in a variety of places because we were
Right.
able to do that, not have to borrow. If we'd had to go out and borrow we'll just use $100,000, then when that check came in, we'd be using it to pay that $100,000. We didn't
Yeah, so
have
part
to
of-
do that, right? So
Right,
when
so
this
part of
checks
the-
come in, do we repay ourselves? Or I guess the question is, how do we repay ourselves?
Yeah,
Right.
so that, for example, you have a policy of retaining 10 to 20% in your unassigned fund balance. So what happens if that goes to zero because of the FEMA flood event? That FEMA revenue should go back to that unassigned fund balance to get good on that reserve fund. You know, the unassigned fund balance, because you don't want to run that to zero and not replenish it. So when we do get that check from FEMA, some of that money that we've borrowed, if you want to call it that, from the unassigned fund balance has to go back to the unassigned fund balance, because otherwise you've depleted your savings account and you don't.
I almost got it.
Yeah.
We borrowed money from ourselves to pay for this, and all this is stuff is just putting the money back in the coffer.
That's the easy way. Yes.
You got it. Yep.
Why did you
Yeah,
say that to
so-
begin with?
No, well, I think there's the piece I was trying to get at you, Dave, was some of that gravel cost was not real money. It was inventory.
Yes.
So we have two.
Right.
That's the piece I can't explain enough for you, but I will.
I want to apologize, Dave, because I had this already figured out, and I should have helped you with it, but I didn't. Sorry.
Well, thanks for the,
You just wanted to watch us struggle, Brian. Yeah, but that's good. See, this is
And-
the
and it
pragmatic
was-
learning.
And
That's
it
right.
was fun. It was
That's
fun.
right. If we have to walk ourselves through it, see, we really learn it, as opposed to, oh yeah, right. I think I understand what Brian.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
No, that's right.
So-
That's right.
I think there's a slightly different way to look at it when you think of where that money came from FEMA. So when we had those expenses and we had to pay all those disaster people, the contractors we had to pay, town labor we had to pay, we grabbed some culverts out of our stockpile, we grabbed gravel out of our stockpile. All those had value.
Yeah.
Some of it comes right back to the unassigned fund balance, right? So we knew we paid those guys without any budget because they're on overtime, and the only place we're going to get that is from unassigned fund balance. That money that we get from FEMA for the overtime and for the, material cost that we paid for out of unassigned should go back to unassigned as a reimbursement to our own account. The question I have, which is what I'm going to hopefully explain for you after this meeting, what do you do with a truck? So we got reimbursement at, let's say, $50 an hour for the town truck. We didn't spend any money for that, but we billed for it. What happens to the gravel? We charge so much a yard. We didn't spend money for the gravel. We used our inventory. So Dave, to answer that better answer your question, if we used 1,000 yards of gravel from the pit up in Garfield, can we use a portion of that reimbursement to go to Menashe and replace 1,000 yards?
Well, or Ron, you must have a breakdown in like the amount of money we're getting back for the trucks, what we did. Is that potentially, of course, who knows when, can we assume the money's coming in the next year? It's probably a big assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be
Well,
a good assumption.
But depending on what that amount is, could we buy ourselves a little space this year when you go to the capital reserves and use that FEMA money to replenish capital reserves?
Yeah, I think when the money comes back, you don't have strings attached to it.
Right, but in
So-
terms of not, if you go back and look at what to keep on target, what we need to put into capital reserves,
Yeah.
if we use some FEMA money to do with that, could that, can we get ourselves down to 5%, 4.5% increase this year by using the FEMA money to fill the reserves?
With those assumptions of getting reimbursed and me providing you with a breakdown of all that, potentially.
Yeah, okay.
So I do want to break it out to answer Dave's question about the gravel and the cost that you just brought up, which is our capital loss because the trucks were used. The reimbursement for use of the unassigned fund balance is the easy one. If we spent money from the unassigned, we should refund that. What about the capital loss because we used our capital equipment? What about the gravel loss from our stockpile? Should we pay Minash to bring in the lost gravel or make our own gravel to replace it? Possibly, so the 38,000 becomes 65,000 with the FEMA money paying the difference. So it's better to look at on one little sheet of paper, but I think that's answers Dave's question and answers the accounting question. Allison has got the breakdown of all this stuff because she's been putting the reimbursement together. So you'll be able to see what the real numbers are, but I think they're over $200,000, maybe even close to 250,000 where we're at right now.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that long discussion, but
No, that's okay. Dave and I have caught up to Brian now. Rolly's being quiet. Okay, and I got Rogers. Rogers probably got it all figured out already.
Well, there's one thing I was thinking of. Didn't that cost us at least 12.5%? The federal didn't cover?
I didn't understand that.
Well,
12.5% of what?
I thought the FEMA money covers 75%. Then I thought the state throws in 12.5, and I thought we had to come up with the other 12.5.
Yeah, no, it's 92.5 is state and federal.
Do you have any tartar sauce?
Okay,
And 7.5 is the town.
all right, 7.5 then.
Yes. And then it's the timing of the money when we'll see it, which I think we're both hoping to see it in before the end of 21, before June 30.
So I'm gonna try to get hold of Mark tomorrow and see if I can set up time with him to see what we can work on some of that budget too. So what do we come up with on that?
Okay.
Because part of it, even looking at, except we don't have the higher health insurances in, but they're at, make it easy, they're up 3.5%, which isn't, horrible. We figure out something with electricity. That's a great idea, Brian. Okay, see what you can find.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
under
that's,
public safety.
Yep, highway. Pretty flat line. The I think there's another, maybe 1,000 or two more. And I gotta mute somebody back feeding a lot. I don't know who that is. Okay, I think that's Dave. Dave, do you have some background equipment going on in your room?
No.
No.
I'll mute
It just
myself.
sounds like that. So do the $1,000 or $2,000 more for the fire salaries potentially if everybody gets shifted to the $15 minimum, but I don't think the legislature is going to move that stick this year. They already have a plan to get there with the cost of living increases, and but you never know, they could have a bill to make it effective July 1st, which would affect the $21,000 number for fire salaries. Ed didn't have a lot of changes. He had the up and down. The medical physical one, we've been debating with him, the $2,000 a year, he's reduced to $1,000. I'm not sure what the 1,000 is for. He didn't explain that, but that's one change. there. I talked to him about whether he could come up with a health and physical safety program or something with that money if it's not going to be for physicals. Of course, the water charges are driving the budget.
Yeah, but I think you
increase.
you got a boo-boo there, Ron. You
Yeah.
didn't transpose your numbers, did you? You got $21,000 down for water, and it's $1,000 a month, that's 12,000.
Yeah, that's water, fixed water,
Sure,
the
right.
fixed water charge under the new system
Yeah,
is
that's
$17,000.
Yeah, that's $1,000 a month, so that'd be $12,000. And I called them up, see what the usage was, and they told me with the fire department over there, it's $7 per 1,000 gallons. So to get 21,000, they'd have to use 110,000 gallons of water this year, which no, they're not gonna do that. I think that line should read 12,000, not 21,000.
Yeah, well, Ed approved all that, but let me check something real quick.
Well, I would too if that was my budget.
Is that part of the sewer too?
Hold on, I'm gonna pull up a bill here that I have. A bill. So the new bill for the fire. Yeah, so yeah, 1,417 is the monthly charge for the base charge without the water usage fee.
Okay.
So that's about 17, right? 17,000. 1,417 times
Yeah.
12.
16,800.
Yeah, and then we're estimating 3,000. 3,000 a year for water usage, but Ed didn't know, he had no clue what it was, if he's gonna fill up trucks, all the time from the station, because they're gonna have a way to do that now. So they won't have to go to the wet hydrants.
Okay, so you're saying their base is 1,400?
Yeah, 1750 per month. Plus usage, which is unknown, but Ed's putting in 3,000 a year.
Why can't they fill off the dry hydrants?
Yeah. I think if we can make that explain the situation we're in, I don't think that'd be too much of an issue to go off the dry hydrants, and anyway, you can go to various ones and make sure they're operating right too. Sometimes
Yeah, they do that. They do that now. They have to do that now because the wet hydrants don't work.
Yeah.
Well, they will once the system's all done.
Yeah, I know. I think that's why it's 3,000. Is Ed's going to use the new water connection at the fire station. So yeah, that's a 3,000. That's a 3,000. Maybe $2,500 question if he could get that down. Keep some for the building itself.
Wow. Divided.
So just see about that number being a little bit lower, and then the fast squad.
Someday this is probably not a budget thing, but there's we ought to put our heads together and consider if we should put the fast squad back in the fire department's hands. And the reason I say that is you look at the labor, $495. How much labor we use, and what we're paying them, 11, 12 bucks an hour for the call, Ron.
Yeah, 11.
You know, if two people responded, that's 24 hours. And, you know, my opinion, Brad is the most active in that squad and the other squad. If you hear the dispatch tone out, whether that's a car accident or a fire, it always goes Hyde Park Fire, Hyde Park Fast Squad, and NEMS respond. Well, Brad is all of them, right?
He is.
The only time that they don't call off the rest of the departments if it's a lift assist. And you know, it's not a lot of money, about $12,000. But could we cut back on radios and AEDs and stuff if it was under the supervision of the fire department again?
Maybe we should wait and see what happens with the election, and that might be part of what consolidates.
Mm-hmm. No, just
Yeah. You know, well, I think particularly with the potential change coming up with the election in the fire department, which is, I got people have said things to me about it, so I know it's public knowledge. There's going to be there's a race there, but that could be part of, you know, if there were to be a change. You're right. Why, you know, you can only wear so many hats, and how do you start to consolidate some things?
right. And the only other question I got with the fire department, what in the world do they have for telephone service? It's $2,900 a year.
That's an extra charge that's showing up this year. I think they're incurring it now, but it's an internet speed issue because they're connected to the first alert system. So it's an internet charge that they pay so they can have direct access to the statewide first alert system through their phone. It's a new thing. It's not a phone system, per se. It's the internet connection to the statewide first alert, I think is what they call it. So Ed had some buzzwords on that, but it's basically a new cost that they had to do for this statewide response.
Yeah, it just stood out.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, they can get thrown out on their phones now, plus their pagers and radios.
I heard pages and radio. What was the question, Roger?
I said they can tone the department out on the radios and on the pagers, and plus their iPhones.
Does Ron, does that connect into the statewide system?
Yeah, I'll get you a little paragraph from. Yeah, I'll get you a paragraph from Ed about exactly what it does, but it's all about the alert system that they follow for dispatching and responding to the state. So I forgot the name of the service that he added that cost us a decent amount of money. I'll ask him about the $1,400, which is, a little over $100 a month. It could be something as simple as dispatching to cell phones versus pagers.
Yeah. Okay. Check it out. We'll see what it is.
Yeah.
I got a question on the fire department. I was just wondering how come Hyde Park firemen have already got their shots when they were supposed to be into the second or the third round? Did somebody pull some strings?
First of all, I don't know that they were supposed to be in that far down the list, and I know a number of other places that their fire department rescue squad folks have gotten their shots too.
Well, yeah. I see some of those fire department responds as a rescue squad. I mean, you know, they have an ambulance service, some of those people. You know, like in the bigger city, like Burlington and Barrie, them guys, you know, their ambulance service and stuff, you know, are run by the fire department, some of them. But I just wonder how come nobody else is, you know, any other departments that I know of have got in besides them here in this county.
You know, Roger, I think it's willy-nilly, because I'm talking about the police department. Stowe's got their shots, and Moyle hasn't got theirs yet. So,
Okay.
It's just a thing that somebody's got to be first.
I'm just going by what I hear on the news, which probably I shouldn't be.
I know it. I got
News.
friends, kids who are over in South Hero, and they're on the rescue squads and fire departments, and they've gotten their shots. Who knows? It's all a mystery.
Yeah, I know.
But we didn't have anything to do with it. Roger, we didn't have anything to do with it, so.
Yeah.
Well, I like the part, we're going to see if they have any bad reactions, then I'll feel better when they get around to us.
The guinea pigs, yeah.
Hey, that's a good idea.
So public safety, it's sort of managed communications. We agreed we're doing 3% a year. We were doing that for 3 years, so this is,
Second
Yeah, I
year?
think that's what it was.
yeah. Yeah, so whatever 3% is what we're paying.
Well,
Despite this,
supposed to be, I think.
yeah,
Yeah, no, Roger proposed, basically a 2.2 and a -6 on the communications and a positive 2.2 for patrol. I contacted the sheriff's office on the 22nd of December, and they said they were not quite done with the final budget proposal yet. So hopefully we'll get that right after the New Year's. But that number is subject to change. The 430,000 is subject to change because that's not a final number from Roger.
okay.
Can we make Roger aware of the potential deficit? Just so it might make a difference in his calculations?
Roger is aware of
Oh, good.
that the towns are expecting to pay 3%. What he does with that is another question, but he's aware of that. Okay, what's next?
How much is NEM's percentage?
3.1.
3.1? All right. In the ballpark then. Oh, I have a question. The office is closed all this week. Are we paying these people for those 5 days we're closed? That's not a holiday? Or is it coming out of the ETO time?
That's a good question. We had left it that the select board was approving at least that Thanksgiving break, I think, as extra time off, but I thought we were splitting the difference and having ETO cover Christmas. That was
Yeah,
back.
I was thinking,
that
I
was
was
a long
remembering
time
check,
ago.
but I think it's ETO.
Okay, did everybody in the office get paid? That included everybody, I mean, except Kim because she's on salary. I mean, Allison and Kristen.
Yeah, I don't, as far as I know, Allison's working today, and I don't know if she's gonna take any time off. Kristen and Kim closed the office. I haven't heard from Julie to see if she's coming in on Wednesday. So I think Allie was trying to take some time off this week,
Okay.
but I know she worked today and she's, planning to work tomorrow.
I was just curious. That this don't include the town highway people, right?
No, it was just the town office staff, which is Kim and Kristen primarily, and then I think it was ETO for anybody that wanted to do it anyway. It was the Thanksgiving week that was the extra.
So they got 4 days of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, four ETO, 1 holiday.
That answered my question. Yep.
Okay, what's next? Wait, okay, whoops. Sheriff. It's the library is the same thing. I mean, I don't see any real changes with other folks.
Ron, so are we looking to do what we did last year, take 30,000 out of the was it capital fund and to reduce taxes? No, you're on mute.
You're muted, Ron.
No.
You're still muted. Okay, we got you, Ron?
Ron, you're muted.
Guess we lost him.
There-
Well, it's interesting. Ron, can you hear us?
Look at the camera. We'll read your lips.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I'm unmuted. Okay, Ron, are you there?
Ron. Ron. Oops, he's focused.
Can you hear me now?
He muted everybody.
Hey, technology. Okay, now he's ready. Okay. Here we go, Ron. Nope, he's still muted.
I think he's got a camera playing in the background. He's really not there. He just
Yeah.
Like something happened to him.
It's a long-term impact from the hip.
Roland and Roger really should have this on their video. So
what's that say?
ending them, reopen.
Okay. Okay, so he's got to end this, and it's that we may all vanish here for a minute. See, this is probably why this is done by the tech company. Cool. This is you guys. This is Bill's supper.
All right. Intermission.
Oh. Left behind.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I'll call Roger because I don't think he'll know what's going on. Roger, hold it.
Okay, there. Did you know that Guy goes home? Okay. That was,
Yeah,
that was
Roger's gonna call. Roger's calling back.
okay. But that was all going to be a thing by NIMRIC to prove that we need to spend $8,000 more a year.
I know we're bombed. We were bombed and disconnected. As soon as you picked up the phone, the whole thing just stopped. You must be on Wi-Fi or something. Boom. She's like hard stop. Closing everything.
Got Rolly and Brian yet?
Yep, I don't see Roger yet. I'm waiting for.
I'm back.
Oh, Brian's back. Oh, is that Roland? Or
Yes,
Brian?
I'm back.
Okay.
You hear me?
Okay, I think we're all back.
Yep, okay.
All right.
Thank you. I think we stopped at the,
Was it NIMRIC?
no, we
Library.
stopped at if you had any questions on library and
Library.
cemetery commission, I guess is where we're at.
I wonder if there's any of the same sort of, oh, wait a minute, at the library, don't they have the automatic lighting system anyways? And I'm wondering about their energy, the hell was that? Roland?
Hold on, there you go.
Is Roland landing again?
Oh, my. Yeah, I think everybody's here, so.
Yeah, I think the library has done all their energy efficient electricity stuff.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think their big increase is the same. You know, it's the water and the sewer.
Yeah, their 4.92 is reduced without the water and sewer to 2.3. So just give you some idea of that. They did their
Right.
best at 2.3, which is good without the water sewer.
Yeah, which I mean, again, I think everybody coming in, that's what everybody worked at doing. So what next?
There's no changes until you get to capital. Capital reserves.
So I think with the capital reserves, Ron, you get back with the information about, you know, how much is FEMA and where it is and how we could potentially split that up, because if we can, you know, if we can do a chunk in the town funds, well, let's just see what options we have there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know, Ron, off the top of your head, what we're expected to get back?
I think the last number I saw was between 200 and 250,000.
What
Yeah.
you got down is the potential is 247,266. So make it a nice round $247,000. And again, Ron, we'll get the splits to see how much quote we lent ourselves to refill those holes, and then
Yeah, I
what's
think that's
left over, what we do with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good time to start planning that, so Ally knows what to do with it when it comes in.
Right. Right.
And if we have to go to zero on highway capital, keep it at 140, but throw some FEMA reimbursement there, then we'll be sort of even, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without part of the 70,000 you need to find. If your goal is still under 3% for the projected tax rate increase.
But I think with the FEMA money, and again realizing part of this, even though fortunately for the town as a whole, the water sewage thing is basically about 1%, right? So if that's sort of unescapable, and if we're really for me, then I'm thinking we're really at 5%. If we can chop another % plus off of that, and if we can do that by using the FEMA money, and I think a serious conversation about the additional $8,000 to NIMRIC. I mean, how much risk do we want to, take? What would really happen? Of course, if you get hacked and you have to pay your way out of it, it's probably a lot more than $8,000.
Yeah, without a good backup plan, that's right. With a good backup plan, it should be almost seamless. So I think that's the biggest difference, is trying to rebuild your systems with a good, resilient, redundant, backup system, or not being able to do that. And we can get partially of the way there because we are backing the main accounting system up, but we are with Tech Group is where the charge. NEMRIC is not the charge. They increased our fees last year to $5,000 a year when it was like $1,500 a year. So they took their big chunk of increase last year. This is a Tech Group services for online security, some employee training, some employee testing. So they'd send a a fake email and see if we clicked on it, that kind of testing. So some real testing, not just training on a webinar, but you know, something coming into your inbox that you're not supposed to touch, and then you touch it, and they'll write up a report on who did it and why they shouldn't do it and all that kind of stuff. And then the cloud-to-cloud backup with the focus on backing up our cloud system so we know we have redundancy there. But I'll give you a little cheat sheet on all that for January.
Okay.
Hey, Ron, can I put you in the spot?
Yeah.
As town administrator and working in other towns and stuff, do you see any fat here at all? And part two of that question, if you were gonna cut, what would you do?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at these budgets, I think we've always budgeted with sort of the bare bones on the normal operations, and we haven't looked at services. You know, it's sort of ingrained in this budget and prior budgets that you are not proposing to cut services.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a big question, because you could do that and save money. I think because you have some goals with your capital that are pretty lofty. I mean, they're trying to get to that fully funded capital reserve on multiple line items. If you were to look at those and say, is there a way we can reduce the capital need? That's the same thing. So you did that a little bit with fire trucks. Can we reduce a truck? You know, totally, you know, by sharing equipment or whatever. That would reduce your capital reserve need for fire vehicles. So you don't necessarily have to have all the money to pay for these brand new trucks every 25 years. If you take a truck out of that plan, you're saving money that way too. And the same thing with your highway capital needs. Is there something that we're not doing there that we should be doing? Do we have too many trucks? Versus just replace the trucks that we have. So without a lot more time on that, I don't see a lot of savings on capital reserve because we're behind the ball on those things. We don't have enough money right now to buy a new grader. We're going to have to take a loan out for the grader and pay the interest charge on that. That's another 5 or 6 years, but this capital reserve that you're putting away now at $20,000 more still does not get you to fund your capital equipment. So I'm sort of I'm going to call it a fan, but I will always advocate for the capital reserve to make sure that you're funding your depreciation. Now, having said that, if you did have a problem with 2 trucks going down at once, we had that in 2015. We had money to deal with that, but it put us behind on the long term. We had 0 for 1 whole year where we didn't have any money in the highway capital because we had spent it twice. So not only are we just barely keeping up with the replacement costs, we don't have a lot of extra in the capital equipment. So even though that looks like a place to save, I would never advocate for saving there because there's not enough money right now for that long-term view. And there's not enough money to cover an unplanned expense.
I think I'd take it right out of the equation.
Yeah, so I think you're doing okay at 20,000 or trying to get an equal amount of increase each year, trying to get there. And I think if you go to 0 just to save 20,000, you're chewing off your nose kind of thing down the road. So I would lay out, I would keep, if I was proposing to 100,000 more on highway to get to the goal right away, I'd probably be proposing cut it down there if that was in the budget. It's not in the budget because it's already been sort of cut already because we decided to work at it gradually over the long term. So there's no room in the capital, to answer your question, to cut anything. If we can find another way to replace it, like Susan was suggesting, that works too, because we don't get off our long-term plan. On the overall budget, I think the library trustees, the recreation services, as far as I know, patrol, I don't know what Roger's going to propose, but if he comes at anything more than 3%, we'll probably have a problem with that because we had already talked about no more than 3. Library they're under 3. they barely have service hours, never mind trying to cut hours to save a few thousand there. So I wouldn't focus on library. Library makes good use of volunteers as well as their other incomes to fund that department. So they're actually doing pretty good overall. If you wanted to look at other services, you're really talking about highway and are there better ways to do things? I think that's always going to be a question with highway. They do so many different things. Is there a better way to do things in highway? So we've talked about that before, and Susan and I have talked about the employee staffing over there. Can we move things around or do things different? And with the same people or less people? Pretty close call on that. You still need 4 or 5 people to get up in the morning and plow the roads if you want them open between 3 and 7:30 in the morning. But I don't think we've looked at all the things in highway like we were talking about before. How do you save 20,000 in highway? You would think it'd be pretty easy to do that somewhere to help us get to that goal. So as far as administration goes, you do have that value call on the tech, the IT line and the internet security is really, it's such a reality today that we haven't done much in the last, I would say 5 or 6 years ago, there was hardly anything being done for security. And now we're looking at sort of getting to the end of that road with that $88,000. There's probably not much more that you would do with IT beyond that $8,000. Do you spread it out and increase it for 2 years? Sure, you could. I would, instead of taking 8, take 4,000 and save 4,000 this year, but know that you'll finish that upgrade next year. You're taking a little bit of risk, obviously, right? Because you're not going to do it all at once. But you could look at that number right there and say, look, we just can't afford that this year. We're going to go halfway with you, for example. Anywhere else on the budget? I don't think wages are too high from a comprehensive review compared to what I've heard other towns playing. Stowe just advertised for their equipment operator. Johnson is hiring in the 19 plus or minus range. So is Stowe. So from a county wage thing, I think Eden just hired at 7. Oh geez, I'm getting confused with the towns. Everybody's hiring lately, but they're not hiring at $14 anymore. They seem to be in the sweet spot of highway is 18 to 22, somewhere in that range for operators, depending on what skills they bring. So we're not out of that range at this point. If you wanted to cut out, the cemetery maintenance, are you going to let your cemeteries go? No, you probably won't cut there. So I don't see a lot of different things. I think the things that you talked about tonight, we should finish. The electricity. I'll look at the IT thing again. The fire department, pretty, I don't understand enough about every fire department line. That's part of my problem with the fire department. I just don't understand all of it, in detail, like the chief would do or new chief would do. It's a good opportunity if there is a change of guard, so to speak, to look at that, line by line with the new fire chief, if there's been such a change. Maybe, different chiefs have different ideas, how to run a department.
Ron,
So that's an opportunity. I've talked about this before, but it's patrol services, which is a huge cost. Do people want less than 24/7? I don't know that answer. I'm guessing people like 24/7 patrol.
When they come in, they want more.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's another obvious, a lot of towns go after police patrol services when they look at budgets. Jericho did that. Huntington does that. Cambridge does that. A lot of towns don't have the kind of the full police department coverage that Johnson and Hyde Park and Wolcott do without a municipal department. They take less coverage and take a chance there. So you're always taking that chance of less services, saving money, and then having some increased negative outcome. So that is I mean, if you look at patrol and communications, it is a big part of the budget. They're equal to, highway almost on their share of the budget.
I heard,
Not
was
every
that
town
Rolly
does
or
that.
Roger with a question?
Payroll of the fire department, what the guys got paid. And remember last year we had some guy like $70 and we're spending $3,000 or $3,500 on brand new sets of uniform, and the guy doesn't come to, 1 or 2 fires a year.
That would kind of fall under the management thing, I would think, with the fire chief.
I know that.
Yeah.
If you got reporting to 3-4 fires, 3-4 fires a year. Spend the money on a person to keep them.
Well, I know,
Yeah, I think that's a fire chief thing. I don't know how to answer that.
I know some departments, as mandatory, you gotta make so many calls and so many meetings. But a lot of this crap is mandated stuff we can't do anything about. Is you take that fire gear for 10-year replacement. Well, you take Hyde Park with 10-year replacement. The majority of the calls aren't fires. The majority of the calls are traffic accidents or directed traffic and stuff like that. Thank God there ain't that many, the fires and stuff. But we still have a 10-year replacement on that bunker gear compared to somebody like Burlington that's got a 10-year bunker gear on there that goes to 100 times more fires we do. There's got to be someplace, sometimes somebody's got to stand up and say, listen, us small towns cannot afford some of these mandates you're putting onto us, whether it's the fire department or highway departments. Some of the ways we have to do the stuff, it's just ludicrous for small towns, especially when you don't have any revenue coming in from businesses.
Well, and you can't.
A lot of those mandate stuff that they want, the mandates are there that if you want to be a full-time fireman. That's why a lot of those mandates are there. On a volunteer basis, I know there's a lot of other little departments in the state of Vermont doesn't replace that gear every 10 years. It's only going to, answer 4 or 5 calls, and you're going to keep spending, money on him.
Yeah, I think it's a question that, some departments, especially if you travel out west or Midwest, some departments make gear last 20 years. Not because they want to, but because they don't have money for it. Ed's response has always been, if we don't follow the spec and somebody gets hurt, it's back on the fire chief. And that's what drives him to try to keep everything in compliance. I've heard him say that more than once.
Yeah,
but what happens when
for something to happen, how do you know? You don't know what happened.
Well, yeah. That's what Ed would say. He's like, you don't know till you know. But if I know it's not in compliance, why am I going to send somebody into a fire that I know their gear's out of compliance?
Well, I think maybe part of the problem is, is we people who don't deal with it all the time, you don't know. It's an interesting longer term question. How do we know? How would a select board know if that equipment is safe after 10 years? Or how safe is it? Or how less affected is it after 10 years? You can get on a can of baked beans best used by you know, 7/21. That doesn't mean in 7/24 it isn't still edible. They're just saying that's when it's best. And what we're really missing is knowing how long that equipment is safe and what degree of, for not having another word, deterioration is there in the equipment. And I
Yeah,
don't know.
sometimes it's,
I don't know how you find.
you know,
I don't know how you find that out. Because certainly the producer. Well, maybe the producers would tell you that.
yeah, sometimes the standards change too. So it's not just the age of the, you know, gear. It's the standards have been updated. So you got to meet a new standard, not a perfectly good piece of equipment.
You know what?
Ron, Eddie should know who these interior firefighters are. Not all firemen are interior fire. So I could see having new gear for those guys that are going into a building. These guys that are never going to go into a building, and he has got some. Every fire department's got some. Some guys don't, you know, going to interior firefighters wouldn't really need a brand new set of gear every 10 years. I bought.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his plan is, but we can ask him how he handles that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all questions can be brought up because I know he's going to tell you, well, you never know who's going to go in. Well, you shouldn't go in there if you aren't trained for it. And not
No,
everybody.
If 22 are trained and 22 are ready to go, that's different than having 5 trained and 15 directing traffic.
I don't believe there's any whole departments that are trained except full timers. I could be wrong.
No, he knows that answer. I can ask him.
But you know, that goes with all departments. You know, we have a, what's their replacement on our trucks, Ron? 10 years?
You're transitioning from 10 to 8 right now. You're not there yet, but you agreed to go from 10 to 8.
Okay, say it's 8 years.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we got to trade those trucks in 8 years just because the calendar turn. You know, we might be able to get another year or two out of there where fixing it up is going to be cheaper than spending that capital money and taking that money and putting it back into the capital fund right then. And that's where the extra money is going to come from. I've seen times, Ron, in my duration on this board, I've seen times more than once that we got to get rid of this truck because it's not going to last. It's going to cost us money. We sell it, son of a gun, and the guys are still running the friggin' thing today. You know?
Yeah, the way it should be done is based on the repairs of the vehicle. If the repairs are costing you more than what it would cost for the new vehicle, that's what you base it on.
That's the way you would run your household, right?
That's the only way I can run it.
Yeah, this is the same discussion we had going from 10 to 8 about 3 years ago. So the cost of, and like I said, that's a board decision. You can certainly make that decision. The transition to 8 was done following the 2013 or 15 model year. I think it was 2015, where all of the industry standards changed. So now every vehicle has a ton more electronics and emission controls, which are not as healthy in the long term as anything prior to 2015. So I think, Dave, you're right. You'll see a lot of older trucks on the road because the guys can replace it themselves. The costs are not that high. But on the newer trucks, you're not that lucky. You end up with I think Mark had a $10 part and a $2,000 bill just because of where that part was. And they can't touch it under the new warranty terms. So the world's a little different in making the things last long. The select board made a decision to go to extended warranties from 5 to 7 years because of the cost of those long, all these parts and pieces now. I don't know what the answer is. Some of the towns that can afford it are down to 6 years because they don't want to deal with the 7, 8 year, this plastic electronic stuff that melts away with because they put it too close to the muffler. There's all sorts of weird. So I don't know what the history is, for these newer trucks, but that question of 6, 8, or 10 is a real question because there's a gambling that goes on, especially with the newer trucks after you get past that 6-7 year window. Just to give you an idea, extended warranties, you can't get past 7 years because they don't want to cover those costs in years 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah.
Or, just an example. But you will see older trucks. I saw some contractor trucks that are probably 20 years old running gravel. But I know that guy's climbing in it every night, tweaking it because he can do it. He can get in there and fix something himself, before he has to go out the next day.
Yeah.
But here we have a $500 tow job to get a $2 part replaced. It's not pretty sometimes when something goes wrong.
Someday it'll be feasible to lease the vehicles. Then you don't have to
If they
worry about
return to electric, we'll go from 20,000 parts to 500. Electric, they're testing out in Europe, they're testing out heavy equipment with electric
I've
now.
seen it. I've seen the things on YouTube.
And the parts reduction is incredible. I mean, you're talking about 1/10 of the amount of parts that have to be replaced on the electric vehicles. They're not feasible right now because the batteries suck at them. When you try to move dirt all day, I think you can get like 4 hours on a big battery, and you sort of need a 10-hour battery.
And you look at the where they're testing it on flat surfaces.
Yeah, there's no real testing right now. It's like, can this work? It might work in 10 years, but we're not dealing with that in a 5-year capital plan, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got anything else? Are we in good shape? Get
So
some more information back? Yeah.
I just sent an email off to Mark, and hopefully he'll get back to me tomorrow, and we can set up a time, and we'll see what we can get out of the budget. Not that I don't want anybody to think that's my intent, but if there's anything we can squeeze out, I'm going to ask Mark first, of course, where he thinks any cuts could be made if he can. Get his side of it and make sure that we aren't cutting our own throat.
Yeah, can we set another meeting beside the regular meeting? Let me just look at calendar here. Or do we just want to assume, well, let's see.
Well, we do have a couple of meetings we have to do. I'll go over those. And then we can talk about another special, maybe on the 4th of January or 11th of January. The 18th is your monthly. The warning and budget have to be finished the week of the 25th. So sometime before Saturday the 30th, you have to finish your budget and get the warning done. The printer wants everything February 1st or earlier. So it kind of gives you the next 3 weeks to iron out some of the bigger, how we're going to get the 50,000 if that's what you're after. Whether it's a combination of FEMA plus some changes you talked about tonight. So
it seems to me if you sort of look Monday the 11th,
yeah,
then we could get it sort of hopefully we'll have answers to all these questions. We can get it reasonably finalized, but that leaves us our regular meeting the 18th to do the final.
Yeah, you could have after the 11th, you could have another tax rate projection to see if you like it.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, you'll work on it the 18th. If you need to, but I would try to finish up by the 18th to let everything else kind of flow.
Right.
Would it be, if we do the 11th, could we shoot for like maybe 7 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock? I've got a training that for work I got to do on that day, but I'm hoping to be out of it and back home by that time. 6, I think we'd be pushing it. But.
Would like the 12th, would the Tuesday be better for you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Does the 12th work for everybody else?
No, not me.
Okay.
13th.
Well, then Brian, you're at work on the 13th.
I am.
Right. So we need our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesdays.
I realize.
Okay, well, let's just try a little later on the 11th. Can everybody do that? 7 on the 11th?
Yeah.
I'll have a cup of coffee and that'll keep me awake. That work for you, Rolly?
Is he sleeping? Want me to call him?
Must have lost him.
Yeah, past his bedtime.
I have a question about town meeting.
Okay, go ahead.
So if we have town meeting, the articles, all Australian ballot, that means that all those other officers, like the listers and stuff that are elected at the town meeting, they all need to be aware that it's going to be Australian ballot to get their papers in. I don't know if anybody thought of that.
Well, well, ooh, sorry. You're right. I have to look and see how many of those others that, that we,
Usually had a cemetery commissioner and all that. So
it's interesting. I don't know if somebody just gets nominated. That's interesting. We got to figure out, you're right, how to do that. I don't know if they have to submit papers. I mean, they don't regularly do that.
nominate them from the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll have to run for a term. They'll submit paperwork like the select board did to run for a term.
Speaking of dead, I gotta do it. Can that be mailed to me or on?
Huh?
Yeah, yes. Kim or Chris, next week, Kim or Kristen can mail it to you.
Yeah, that's right.
But
Me too, Dave. Like, oh yeah, paper. Okay.
Yeah, maybe Kim's gonna mail it to, everybody that normally would be a floor vote, just to give them a chance to run for that term. And, no petition needed. You just have to file the paperwork.
Right.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good pickup, Roger. You're right.
We're gonna be there till probably 3 o'clock in the morning counting.
Well, the ballot will be automatic. It should be run through the machine.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I like that.
Yeah. Kim definitely said they were going to adjust the ballot so that the machine can do it all.
Good.
Hey, we'll be talking to Kim tomorrow or next day or something.
Can email her. She's definitely closed the office because I kept on getting email back from her saying closed till Monday. So she might be checking, but she may not be. I don't know.
Well,
Do you have a question for her about that, or?
No, I'd like her to send a sympathy card for the town of Hyde Park to Ken Harvey. Melvin passed away. Melvin was a town officer,
okay.
and Ken's only family. So I think it'd be appropriate to send him a sympathy card from the town.
I can talk to her about that and see if she wants me or her to do it. One of us can do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we got anything else? We good?
Good.
I'm all set. Have we heard from Roland yet?
Yeah, I lost my mute button. I got it back.
Okay, so I guess we can adjourn, right? Anything else we need, Ron?
No, I'll try to summarize tonight's discussion in the sense of the dollars, so you can see, and get that out to you well ahead of the meeting, so that you can have some more time to look at the fine lines. And Brian, if you're going to meet with Mr. French and come up with any great ideas, let me know as soon as possible, and I'll kick that around to all the members.
Sure.
Yeah. Rolly, we're going to do an extra meeting on Monday, the 11th.
Yeah, I got it at 7.
You got that one? Okay. I don't know where we'd lost you. Okay.
7 o'clock,
You're going to do
right?
7 o'clock, right?
Yeah. I thought you might be out patching the window you threw the thing through.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I guess then I just need a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion to,
second.
Okay, we got it. Second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? Anybody not? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you,
Happy New
everybody.
Year.